The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Wednesday, April 24th, and today is National Administrative Professionals Day. It's also National Bucket List Day, Stop Food Waste Day. I feel like they need to get back to bring back real food before we worry about stop wasting food. But it's also, you guys are going to love this, especially you, Luke. It's also National Pigs in a Blanket Day. Oh, yes. Thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above on your screen to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to anyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And kicking off today, we are going to do a little upside down day today. That's right. It's hump day, and so we're gonna flip it up and switch it over, and we are gonna start off today, that's right, everybody's favorite felon who didn't do no telling. That's right, it's Mr. Luke Scormazzo, who at one point in time did some time for a cannabis crime, and his new book, High Price, you can find on Amazon and anywhere else you can find books. That's right, High Price. It is none other than Luke Scormazzo.
Yes. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. High at 9 News cracking off. We're on time today. How about that for a weed show? And it's been one crazy-ass week. We started it off in Benzinga. Shout out to Florida, Fort Lauderdale. Lauderdale. Anyhow, we had a good time down there. Made a lot of awesome connections. Shout out to Alexa Alianello from X. Wow. If you guys haven't watched the keynote presentation and experience that we did, check it out. It was an epic experience that you guys aren't going to want to miss. But this is something that you guys are going to want to miss. Not far from Florida is a city called Baton Rouge, and it is the capital of Louisiana. And I spent some time in Louisiana, literal time in Louisiana, and I was in Pollock, which is kind of like northern part of the state. And Louisiana does time in a different way down there. Really, the whole South does. When I did time in Mississippi as well, and just the culture of incarceration in the South is much different than in the West and in many parts of the world. It's not pleasant. So these guys are in for a rough trip. Baton Rouge men charged after pounds of marijuana found during traffic stop. 3 Baton Rouge men arrested after a traffic stop on Friday, April 19th. Come on, man. You got them a day before 420, man. The stop was initiated by Baton Rouge Police Department, took place around 11:45 p.m. Damn, you got them 15 minutes before 420. I mean, damn. In the 3100 block of Bartlett Street. Jerome Walker, 24, was charged with illegally carrying a weapon with a controlled dangerous substance and possession with intent to distribute marijuana. This is a harder name. Trazadreon Gaines, the fourth, 22, was charged with illegally carrying weapons with a controlled dangerous substance and possession with intent to distribute marijuana. Ronald Williams, 22, was charged with possession with intent to distribute marijuana. For people that like don't know, when they say like charged with illegally carrying firearms with a controlled dangerous controlled substance, basically anytime you have a firearm, it could be a legal firearm, it could be an illegally obtained firearm, it could be one that your grandpa gave you, it could be one that you bought legally from the store. When you carry it with a dangerous controlled substance, that makes the gun become illegal now in most justice systems. And it's something that people are trying to advocate against and change. It's something that my boy Weldon Angelos was sentenced to 55 years behind because of 924C laws at the federal level. And it's definitely a tool that law enforcement and prosecutors use to enhance these charges and make it really, really a bad offense now. Dale can probably speak a little bit more to that, and I'll give him, I'll kick it back to the correspondents in a second. But, it's just a way that they're charged. It sounds a lot worse than it is. Basically, somebody had some weed on them, and there was a firearm in the area. BRPD officers initiated the stop after seeing a vehicle driven by Walker without its headlights on. That's a tough one. But again, that is not always true. I was pulled over now this is going to date me, but I was pulled over in a Mercedes. It was a late model. I won't even give the date. How about that? I was pulled over in a late model's Mercedes where the lights automatically come on. An officer pulled us over and said he pulled us over because the headlights weren't on. So I'm not saying that was the case here. I'm just saying just because they said the headlights weren't on doesn't necessarily mean they weren't on. Gaines and Williams were the passengers in the vehicle. All three men were, quote, detained due to the odor of marijuana in the vehicle, as well as a firearm was in the vehicle under the driver's seat, according to the affidavit. Officers were told there was another gun in the vehicle, apparently by one of the three gentlemen. During the search of the vehicle, officers found baggies of marijuana in the trunk and some in the glove box. BRPD said that officers seized 14 pounds of marijuana, semi-automatic pistol, a rifle, and cash. Walker, Gaines, and Williams were all booked into the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison. It's not a typo. I didn't misspeak. In Baton Rouge, in the parish, you go to the joint right away. They'll take you back and forth to court, but you are in prison immediately. So we have a situation here where we have three young men riding through Baton Rouge with 14 pounds of weed in their car, and they have a gun on them. Now, I don't know if any of you have been in the South. I don't know if any of you have been in cities like Jackson and Baton Rouge and tried to sell 14 pounds of weed. It's probably a necessity to have a gun in that situation. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not saying that's reasonable, that's right or anything. I'm just telling you what it is. In those situations, if you aren't armed to deter some type of robbery, you're not going to sell any of those pounds. You're going to be robbed. I don't care if it's on the traditional market or on the rec market or on the medical market or any market. That's just the way things are down there. People are broke, they're hungry, and if they see somebody with that much weed and no way to protect it, you're gonna have a problem. But the real problem is we have three young men here in their 20s that are all in prison right now because of 14 pounds of weed. And this was on the day before 420, before we all celebrate cannabis in the plant. So I'm setting the tone this morning by saying hey, look, as we celebrate, as we do the news, as we do all this, we got three guys going through the justice system right here. This isn't unusual. We have three women going through the justice system somewhere else in the United States, I guarantee it, and three other people somewhere else. And this continues to happen every single day. I know out here in California and Colorado and New York and all these cool states that we live in, we kind of are separated from these situations. Walker's mother isn't. Gaines's mother isn't. Williams's mother isn't. They could look at all of our stuff on Instagram and on Facebook and on X and see what's going on and see us celebrating the plant while their sons are sitting in prison. Fresh, too, with a sentence ahead of them. Not, oh, we're advocating for them to get out. They're almost to the halfway house. These guys are starting their sentence. And it's something we got to change. This is Luke Scormazzo coming to you for the High at 9 News, your local outlaw correspondent. I'm going to kick it back to my local correspondents, man. Give me a vibe on this. What are you guys feeling on this? Dale, I know you'll have some stuff to add. Manndie, JB, Sohum. Back to you guys.
Yes.
This is not an unusual situation, Luke, as you well know. The Controlled Substances Act was draconian enough, but then the gun laws that were attached to it made it even more draconian. And after the Controlled Substances Act was passed, almost every state passed a similar law, and then they hooked guns to it. This has been going on for a while. The enhancements are what kills you. Now, in my situation, the guns I had, I bought my handguns from cops. Mm-hmm. And I had a concealed weapon permit. So when they showed up at my house, my pistols were secured, the ammunition was secured and locked up. So they gave me my guns back, even though I had pounds of weed in my closet where the guns were. They gave it back to me. They gave me my money too. And that was an example of the treatment I got that was different than the average Joe Dokes driving around with 14 pounds and a gun under his seat because he has to have it. I got to tell you, there were times when I was buying weed when Molly was smoking a ton, and I showed up with thousands of dollars in my pocket to buy weed from someone I never met, and I was packing a gun. Mm-hmm. And it was definitely not legal to be doing, mm-hmm. even though I had a concealed weapons permit. But again, when you show up and you got cash or you got fungible assets like weed and someone's going to rob you, what are you going to do? You may say, hey, take all the weed, and they may still shoot you. And so the government has preyed upon the realities of being involved in this industry, add enhancements. And these young men are looking at being spanked for one hell of a long time, Luke, as you well know. They're gonna ram this up their butt as far as they can, and it's just tragic and continues to happen.
Yeah, and it's crazy too. Also, just to add real quick, that we require there to be armed security at a dispensary in Beverly Hills, yet we are gonna hammer these dudes for decades because they had arm themselves in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at midnight with 14 pounds.
Just for the record, there are no dispensaries in Beverly Hills. That is not true.
Whatever. You know what my point is.
Okay. I thought the exhibit just opened one.
Nope. That's not Beverly Hills. The exhibit did open one, but that's not in Beverly Hills at all. Not even close.
Like City of Beverly Hills has a moratorium.
Correct. City of Moratorium has a complete ban on all dispensaries.
They don't want you buying weed next to the Hermes store on Rodeo.
They do not want that. That's for
sure. You can bet they deliver up there.
You'd probably buy more Hermes if there was a weed store next to it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, put a lounge there. I know they got a wine tasting room. They should get a lounge.
Yeah.
Hermes, holler at Profit. We'll do a co-branding situation where we can get a bunch of people to buy our products. Let's go.
Cute. Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. This is just more of the same, more travesty, more lives ruined in the war on drugs, and I feel like it's only probably going to get worse once it goes to Schedule 3, as opposed to getting any better. But I guess time will tell, and we will be covering these types of stories as the drug war proliferates in time, as we continue through this whole thing. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
Oh man, that was weird. Hey, you America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
Oh, yes. Coming up next. That's right. It's Miss Manndie Tingler. She's a mom. She's a cannabis executive. And she recently hosted the Women's Canna Awards, highlighting all of the women in the cannabis industry and all the great work that they do. That's right. It is none other than Miss Manndie Tingler.
Good morning, everybody. I have an article that's coming to us out of the great state of North Carolina. The headline reads, medical marijuana sales begin at Cherokee store. Says medical marijuana can now be legally purchased in North Carolina with the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians opening its long-planned dispensary this weekend on tribal land. Hundreds of people, many with approved medical patient cards to purchase items, celebrated the historic opening of the Great Smoky Cannabis Company on Saturday with the Eastern Band land known as the Qualla Boundary, the Asheville Citizen-Times reported. Saturday was April 20, which is also known as 420 Day, or an annual day for the celebration of marijuana. The ceremony marks the latest liberalization of marijuana rules by the tribe, which in 2021 decriminalized possession of small amounts of marijuana within its 89 square miles of land in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The tribe also formed a medical marijuana system that included tribe-created businesses to grow cannabis, sell it, reaping financial rewards for the tribal members, and assisting those with medical conditions. This project will change the trajectory of their lives forever, says Forrest Parker, the general manager for Qualla Enterprises, the tribal company that manages the dispensary. He was quoted during the opening ceremony. He says it will also be a conduit to generations of social, economic, and spiritual growth unlike anything that's ever been witnessed. The Eastern Band, with about 14,000 members, can pass rules permitting cannabis as a sovereign nation and federally recognized tribe. Marijuana use remains illegal in the rest of North Carolina. Still, Republican U.S. Senator Tom Tillis and Ted Budd have raised concerns with federal and state law enforcement about whether drug laws will continue to be carried out in light of the dispensary. A statewide medical marijuana bill has considered in recent years by the North Carolina General Assembly. The scope of marijuana sales could become much greater. The majority of Eastern Band voters backed in a referendum last September in the adult recreational use of marijuana on tribal land. The question also asked whether voters supported the tribal council to develop legislation to regulate such a market. The Cherokee Observer reported that adult use ordinance could be finalized in June, citing council member Boyd Owl. He says, let's get it right before we put it out there. We are on the right track. The dispensary could generate over $200 million in gross sales revenue in its first year if limited to medical patients, compared with $385 million if the product is available to all adult users, according to figures from Qualla Enterprises released before last year's adult use referendum. Saturday's ceremony featured tribal translator Myrtle Driver purchasing the first medical marijuana in a transaction made in English and Cherokee. She said that she had named and translated the different strains of cannabis into Cherokee. You guys, this is very exciting for the state of North Carolina. And I think that this is a really interesting way to get the ball on the field in a state. I love the fact that we're talking about tribal nations and accessibility to cannabis. Very exciting to me. I'm curious to hear what you guys all had to think. This is Carmen Sacramento coming at you live for High at 9 News.
I mean, I think this is fantastic news that this tribe is opening up. I mean, there's not a lot of anything around there for them to even compete with. I think this is fantastic for the tribe. I just find it's going to be amazing. And most of the people out there do have a off-road vehicle, so they're going to be able to navigate on the range to get to their weeds. So this will be great.
Yeah, I think
this just kind of reminds me of like the story from Luke when he was able to open his dispensary back in Modesto, and there was nothing for like 100 miles or more. Like,
exactly.
These people definitely have the road paved ahead of them for a minute at least. The runway is pretty damn good.
Exactly.
Right.
I think at a higher level, it's cool too, because for so long we've, at least on paper, claimed that Native American reservations or nations, depending on which state you're in, are sovereign places, sovereign land where they can make their own laws. But one exception to that apparently has that we've applied the war on drugs to their land for so long. So I think it's a good step in the right direction that we're actually now respecting the sovereignty of Native American land and allowing them to proceed with legalization if they choose.
I'm just waiting to see if the North Carolina State Troopers set up junction spots outside of the reservation and get people that are leaving the reservation with weed, because technically they could arrest them for that. And so,
I mean, of course they are. Of course they are. Yeah, of course.
Well, I mean, if I'm wrong.
Well, we haven't covered
Isn't
any
that
stories
dependent on
that,
the
so we
state's
can't say.
entrapment laws?
No, I mean, it is. You're right. So, I mean, I definitely would be textbook entrapment. But the Highway Patrol did it on the whole entire time we had medical laws. They sat on the 101, right underneath the Emerald Triangle, with 20 patrol cars waiting, just car after car after car. Like, that's how they would do us. And we were completely legal, but they would know that they would take our cannabis, they would take our cash, it would be tied up for months and months and months. And then, you know, what that does to a small startup business.
And
So,
they also did this in Nevada at one point in time when High Times was going to have a cannabis cup on an Indian reservation land when they were trying to skirt the rules around that. And so it's not a uncommon practice for law enforcement to do that.
yeah. But I mean, and let's step back real quick and look at the irony of this. We come in, you know, whatever, several hundred years ago as European settlers to a land that already had indigenous people on it growing cannabis for who knows how long. Some could argue thousands of years, right? And then we come in and it's okay for a long time. And then for the last 80 years, we make it illegal. And now we're making them jump through all these other hoops again to say that you can consume, distribute, and commercially sell the plant that you could consume, distribute, and commercially sell before we got here.
Very true.
Cherokee have a long history with the government down south, especially.
Absolutely.
And they won a lot of cases. And Andy Jackson lost the case against the Cherokee Nation. Said, "Yeah, that's the Supreme Court can do what they want. Now let them enforce it." It's about time the Cherokee got something back for all their trouble. But they can only control what happens on their territorial land. Once you get off there, as you guys know, if they're profiling you, you know, that you get stopped and you're done. Hope you don't have a gun in there or something like that. And you know, we'll see how the minions that want to fight back against this actually act, or they're moving towards staying away from this to encourage a legal market in North Carolina.
Let's do that. Let's encourage the minions. Go ahead, Sohum. Go ahead.
Or they could take the other approach and reduce the reliance on a dispensary on native land by moving forward with their own system, whether it's medical or recreational. You know, that's really the more appropriate approach.
Let's ask the more important question. Which rapper is going to perform a concert at this reservation before any other rapper?
God, please let it be Jelly Roll.
That would be awesome.
Jelly Roll.
I feel like Eric could also pull off a pretty amazing concert for something like this.
I mean, either one of those artists that you just named are superstars, and they could pull off a concert anywhere on Mars. Either one of them. Actually, Erica, holler at us if you ever do that. I said that first. Mars, Erica Badu. But yeah, that would be super dope, Jay. I think like we could get. Where's the res at? North Carolina. I mean, Petey Pablo, baby.
Pablo, exactly.
Where's Petey Pablo?
Exactly. That's what gave me the first that first thought, is remembering that song. That song is ever enshrined in my mind. That North Carolina. Yeah. Yep.
Stand up.
Yep. Stand up. You spin it like a helicopter.
Yeah.
Yes. And on that, we're going to spin right on into the next story. We're going to roll right on into Mr. Sohum Shah. He is currently developing a cannabis product for athletes, and apparently he's planning on releasing it in Nevada first. That's right. It is none other than our favorite guy in our favorite red state of Texas. That's right, Mr. Sohum Shah.
You get it wrong every time, Justin. Jason, sorry. Purple state.
That was
good,
bro.
Your name is Justin, like this is a red state. But today we're going to talk about something that I'm sure Jason will be very interested in, and it is a correlation between a state passing recreational cannabis laws and the effect that it has on deportation of immigrants. So states that legalize marijuana see a moderate relative decrease in immigrant deportation rates compared to states where the drug remains illegal, according to a new study, as well as a slight decrease in overall cannabis-related arrests. The Columbia University researchers behind the study, published in the journal BMC Public Health, said the findings showed that recreational cannabis laws could help to mitigate some of the unintended immigration-related consequences of cannabis prohibition. Arrest trends in both legalization and non-legalization states were relatively similar and generally stable over the period. For the deportation outcome, trends suggested that the overall prevalence of deportations decreased between 2009 and 2020. Our results suggest that recreational cannabis laws were associated with a moderate relative decrease in deportation levels that was observed relatively consistently across multiple model specifications. Findings also suggested potential relative decreases in immigration arrest levels. However, for almost all the specifications, associated confidence intervals are wide and included the null. Together, these findings support the overall possibility that recreational cannabis laws may help to mitigate some of the unintended immigration-related consequences of cannabis prohibition. So the researchers didn't reach any specific conclusion about the seeming connection between state-level legalization and decreased deportations, but it is the case that all 11 sanctuary states for immigrants, whereas generally the policy to discourage reporting immigrants to federal authorities, are also states that have legalized cannabis for adult use. Further, legalization broadly leads to decreased arrests for cannabis-related offenses, so it's likely fewer immigrants would be caught up in the marijuana criminalization in the first place, regardless of the potential referral to federal agencies. There's a lot more detail about the study, and you can read more about that, but I think that's probably enough, and it's something that we could get into discussion about. I think one point that's probably important and somewhat obvious to make is that if you think of the process by which deportation generally happens, you'll have an arrest happen for one reason or another, and then the suspect is discovered to be an undocumented immigrant, at which point deportation comes into play. So by removing that criminal element associated with possessing or cultivating or whatever you're doing with cannabis, you're reducing the possibility of being arrested, which then reduces the possibility of being deported. But yeah, this is Sohum with High at 9 News, and I'm interested in hearing what everyone else has to say about this.
So Sohum, let me just get this straight. They're saying that in places that have cannabis, that they have fewer deportations. Am I correct on that?
That's generally what they're saying. And they made it clear, but they're not implying causation.
I don't think that this is actually news. Because most places that have legal forms of cannabis have already deemed themselves as far as sanctuary cities and forbidden their law enforcement to work with ICE and other different federal agencies in regards with deportation. So I don't get how this is even news. I feel like they're just gaslighting people to have them feel good inside.
I don't necessarily think that. If you think about when the whole trend of deeming places sanctuary cities, that's only in the past few years. This study is going back from 2009 to 2020. So I think there is some
that's a fair
validity
point
to it. Again, I'm not necessarily the same way in the study. They're not implying that there's a causation between legalizing and reduced deportation of immigrants, but I think it's interesting and noteworthy. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that it's gaslighting.
Do we know?
Hold on, Jay, real quick.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay. So I'm going to go this way. I'm going to say it is causation. I'm going to go that far, and I'm going to tell you why. The very first laws that were on the federal books, and Dale can elucidate on this. The very first laws that were in the federal books, the penalty was deportation. And the reason penalty was deportation was because we did our investigation and we found that during the Basero program, when we brought tons of Mexican immigrants up to work the jobs that nobody else would work, when we had all of our men away at war, and they all came back and they didn't have any jobs, we had to find a way to get rid of the Mexicans. And one of the ways was we found out that they consume cannabis. So one of the first federal laws to go onto the books, the penalty was deportation. So this is nothing new. This is not something that, in a state where it's recreational legal, the deportations have gone down. Duh. Because that's one of the way you guys are describing it is in like this completely like altruistic world where like, hey, they just come up and they get enforced and it just happens to be cannabis and then they happen to be undocumented and then they happen to get deported. That's not how it happens.
I agree with that part.
They see, oh, these cats got cannabis on them. We know they're illegal. We're going to go over there and harass them. And our way to be able to harass them is through the cannabis. That's our legal mechanism to be able to go harass.
That's the door.
We cannot.
Yep, that's the gateway to start the conversation.
That's the gateway to start the conversation. After that, the floodgates are open and I can arrest you now. So let's call this what it is. Of course, we're going to have a decrease in deportations in the states that have recreational or even medicinal laws. And you'll see some of the red states that we call red states or whatever. I hate even saying that because I think that's foolish to do. We're all Americans, but whatever. Anyhow, and you see some of the other states that tend to lean more conservative, then they have rec or medical laws, and it's still the same thing.
Look at Oklahoma.
So, yeah, exactly. Oklahoma, great example.
California's been doing this for a long time, guys. In 1913, they prohibited Indian hemp and targeted South Asian populations growing down in the Central Valley. Okay, and when I was when I was first put in, I was in jails with tons of people waiting to be deported because they'd been caught up in some cultivation scheme. That's where you found a lot of the undocumented. They were out cultivating places and they were picked up. And even in California, where they weren't ratting them out, they were still found out that you're undocumented and we're going to kick your ass out of the country.
Now, let me finish real quick. Let me finish just real quick. Now, you can feel however you want to about immigration. For immigration, pro-immigration, anti-immigration. I don't care about any of that, right? This is still a human being policed over cannabis and being incarcerated. However you feel after that about how they got here or where they should go or who should pay for it, I don't care about all that. What I'm telling you is this. This is just another mechanism by law enforcement to be able to police a human being over a plant. And if you don't agree with that, then you shouldn't agree with it in any circumstance.
And Luke, I'm going to take that one step further. Why don't we actually do some kind of root cause analysis and observe why we have such a large influx of immigration from Latin American countries? It's all tied to the same thing. It's directly tied to our war on drugs and the impact that that's had on safety, livability, corruption in all of those places, which is pushing people to seek better places to live, which is why they come here. So it's a full circle.
Right.
Interesting, you guys. Look at this. We're going to roll right into a commercial. We're going to be right back. The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated. All right, stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you hit that like button. I know you'll appreciate it. We'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. Last time I checked, we just need about 17 more subscribers to push us over the 3K limit, so hopefully you can be one of them. And all of the stories that we cover on today's High at 9 News, you can find directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
Hi, I'm Smoky Vanilla. I have my bachelor's degree in kinesiology, and I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on individuals that are in sport with chronic pain or injury. I love to intuitively create and customize a session based on the individual that I'm working with. We'll go over a few postural assessments, work together to create a wellness journey based on the health history, past injuries, or anything still affecting you today. And we'll get you back on your feet right away with less pain.
We're about to stretch, and then we're gonna smoke, because we're gonna get on our stretch and smoke. If you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to come on down and get a stretch and smoke with none other than Smoky Vanilla. Yee. Yes.
One of my favorite ad libs of all time. Like there's a few ad libs, like Jeezy's good at ad libs, Migos are good at ad libs. Smoky Vanilla up there with Migos and Jeezy on ad libs.
Look at that. All right, coming up next, that's right, it's Mr. Attorney Dale Schafer. He's the founder of Armada Law Practice, and at one point in time, he did some time for a cannabis crime too. And he also became a felon, but didn't do no telling. That's right, it is none other than Mr. Attorney Dale Schafer.
That's right. I rode my beef and kept my mouth shut.
That's right. That's right.
Today's story is about ayahuasca. I haven't chatted about entheogenics for a minute, but the lead is out of Law 360. Ayahuasca church settles religious freedom suit with the feds. Okay, I read the settlement, and I took a look at the interesting parts of this, and it seems that the government must have felt they did something wrong here, because the DEA is very slow to ever agree that they were wrong. And maybe they'll agree that they were short on being right here. I don't know. The church is called the Church of the Eagle and the Condor down in Arizona. And it seems that sometime before 2022, one of the governmental entities, and I suspect it was Customs and Border Enforcement, pinched a load of their ayahuasca. Now, I don't know if it was paste or tea. It didn't say in this, but apparently the church was trying to get them to give it back, and they filed Freedom of Information Act complaints, and they got stonewalled like everybody else dealing with the DEA gets stonewalled. So they filed a lawsuit in 2022 under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act and the Freedom of Information Act, alleging that the DOJ, the DEA, Homeland Security, and Customs and Border Enforcement had violated their First Amendment constitutional rights to religious freedom. And as you might imagine, this was a war because the DEA really does not want anybody to be able to use these entheogenics anywhere. So when I read that they had settled, I'm very curious about the deeper reason here. Now, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act goes back to Bill Clinton's first year as president. And Chuck Schumer, who's now the head of the Senate, was a representative. And he put it forward. Ted Kennedy in the Senate put it forward. And it was supposed to restore religious freedom, the exercise of religious freedom. And it typically involved long-standing practices. And it was targeted at a case that came down just before this, I think in the Bush administration, where a Native American, I think in Oregon, had been fired for having mescaline in his system. Okay. And it's like, hey, dude, my tribe uses peyote and mescaline. So, and the Supreme Court said, nah, we're not going to allow this. That's not an exercise of religious freedom. So hence comes this rule or this law that was signed in '93. Now, in the last 20 years, interest in entheogenics has been growing exponentially. And if you look across the country, there are battles going on with especially indigenous groups, about being able to exercise their religion through the use of entheogenic plants. And the primary ones are mescaline or peyote, mushrooms, and ayahuasca. Now, this church uses ayahuasca, and they use it in a sacramental tea. And what they were apparently doing was importing this stuff and mixing their teas up, and the members of their church were able to use it. Now, what this settlement does, and I had to chuckle to myself as I read it, because the DEA was basically ordered, you're going to give them an import license, you're going to give them a manufacturing license, you're going to give them a distribution license, and as long as they're following the rules in this settlement, you can't touch them. They're allowed to import ayahuasca paste from Peru. They name the person and give them a general title of, and I can't remember what they call these people, but who's going to bring it in. They're going to bring it into their facility. They're going to take the paste, mix it into tea, and distribute it. You have to have people standing by to make sure if you have a medical problem, some protocols, if you really medically shouldn't be using ayahuasca. But then they went further and told the DEA that you only got so many days to take action if you bring some question up. They don't get to set on this for years. These automatically renew. And as I'm reading this, somebody decided that somebody here had fucked up big time. Okay? Because all over the country, the DEA is fighting, allowing churches to use mushrooms, to use ayahuasca, use peyote. Now, the Native Americans have been successful with peyote because they could show through their history that we've been using this for a long time. And so they wrote into this law, they allow mescaline for religious ceremonies. Okay, so they gave them a break. But for ayahuasca and psilocybin mushrooms, they are fighting like crazy. So when I read this, it's like, oh, the DEA rolled over and stuck their butt up in the air. I'm really curious as to what they had on them here that would force them to do this, because the DEA is not known to do anything helpful to anybody that wants to use any psychoactive substance. I don't care whether it's First Amendment or what. I'm going to throw it back at you for some discussion. This is interesting, and I'm curious if this might break the door open for more religious practices and religious expression which uses entheogenics. So back at you guys. What do you all think?
Man,
Can we get some applause for the DEA taking a fat L?
Yeah, we don't have any soundboards, bro. So we're out of soundboard this week. Next week.
It's a golf applause then.
Yeah. You guys can go ahead and give a round of applause. Rico, you're on mute if you're trying to talk, Rico.
Yeah, so we got some stuff we can do, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, jeez.
Hell yeah! What's up, dopest down on the street, Rico Lamitte?
So Rico, did you get to hear any of this story that Dale just covered about this ayahuasca? This ayahuasca church, okay, just settled the lawsuit, and apparently they are allowed to import ayahuasca. They're allowed to give it to people. They're not allowed to sell it, are they, Dale?
No, but
they're allowed to give it. They're allowed to distribute it, and they're allowed to get people high on ayahuasca legally, and can import it from Peru.
That's dope.
Pretty dope, huh?
Rico.
I see another venture with Profit Brands.
Are you going to go to church now, Rico?
I ain't scared, but I'll go to church.
You're not
You know
scared,
what
huh?
Yeah.
I don't.
No,
where is this church, Dale?
Arizona,
It's in
right?
Arizona. I think it's Phoenix.
Interesting.
Phoenix-based area. And this is in federal court.
Yeah.
So this can be cited, around the country. It's not necessarily precedent setting because they didn't make a decision based on the law, but the fact that they're in federal court, and I can't emphasize enough, the DEA had to roll over and stick their butt in the air on this one. And I laughed my ass off because I've been part of too many cases where the DEA fought tooth and nail not to give up a single millimeter go backwards, and here they are. They have to give them a 1-year license and it automatically renews. You don't have, we're not asking you no more. So somebody inside of this little group that got sued stepped on their wang big time, and they had to roll over and give this up. So I just hope it does something for these groups that are trying to use psychedelics as, spiritually and also as antidepressants, mood elevators. Mm-hmm. So many cultures used to use this. going back into the Mediterranean where, all the oracles used to take entheogenic plants before Apollo allowed them to walk out and pronounce their findings. So this goes way back, and I think we'd be a healthier country if we were allowed to use entheogenics without having to go ask the DEA.
Well, there'll be a residual effect that can be used from that argument over to cannabis, for the cannabis churches.
Well, cannabis is a different animal because it's hard to find the historic tradition of using cannabis spiritually in the Americas. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but the use of ayahuasca and of mescaline and peyote and of magic mushrooms is well documented. I mean, they got carvings on walls in South America, okay? So it's got a lot easier tradition, but try to parse out what is a good faith held religious belief, okay? What does that mean? There's no objective way to do it. And so the DEA has always fought this, and I can't tell you enough. It just makes me smile that they won't admit they're wrong, but maybe they'll admit they were short on being right here, or they screwed up so badly they had to give one up.
I mean, I have a follow-up question about that, though, Dale. I mean, you said a lot of these arguments are predicated on being able to demonstrate a historical tradition of using a substance. My question is, where is there a requirement in the definition of a religion or a spiritual practice that it has to be an ancient tradition? Mormonism is a few hundred years old, right? It's still respected as a legitimate religion. So I mean, I would, again, I'm not arguing this in court, so that's a whole different question, but I would make the argument that there's no requirement in the First Amendment or in any dictionary definition of a religion or a spiritual practice, but it has to be rooted in ancient tradition.
Well, you're right. But the problem is there's a conflict here between the First Amendment Free Exercise Clause and the Controlled Substances Act. And for far too long, the Controlled Substances Act was allowed to control here. And this is supposed to be under what they call strict scrutiny. You've got to find that there is a fundamental governmental interest involved here, and that these rules have to be narrowly crafted to only address that fundamental interest. And the Controlled Substances Act was never supposed to control there, okay? But it does. And they've allowed these religious questions to come up when, in fact, if you have a good faith religious belief, who else is going to tell you you don't? Go tell them to fuck themselves. It's your right to believe what you want to believe, and you shouldn't have to go back and demonstrate this. But the cases have been won more easily when you can say, hey, we used to take peyote buttons, and we can show that back, thousands of years we did this, or things like that. It was easier to win the case. Now, it shouldn't be like that, but it damn sure is like that.
That makes sense.
That it does. And on that, we're gonna go.
DEA is just taking L's left and right. Like it.
Man, chalk one up for the good guys.
About time.
Do we have any applause out there? About time.
I don't know. Rico's here. Rico might have some canned applause, but
I got all the applause.
We're gonna go to a commercial. We're gonna be right back. Get ready for the return of the shit show to Los Angeles, returning Friday, May 3rd, 7 p.m. to midnight at a brand new venue. Comedy sets by comedians such as Demi York, Lindsay Ames, Alyssa Phillips, Chris Thayer, Josh Shakespeare, Fumi Avi, Jay Snow, Brent Weinbach, Chris Kelly, and hosted by none other than Abdullah Saeed. So head over to www.cloudmedia.partners now to get your tickets, and we'll see you there. Is the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, who had a little late day today because he had a big meeting because there was such a big old Dutchie crash on 420. Oh man, that's right. It is none other than the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Yeah, Jason. So I could keep my mouth shut on the whole Dutchie situation.
It's all good. It's all good. You can do that.
Yeah. There's some things that are thinging right now. In other news, my story today is right here. All right, so yeah, my story today is about unions. Jason's favorite.
I love this story.
Topic. It, and I do have to call a spade, and unions are taking an L right now, a major L, because of what just happened out in Massachusetts. So here we are now. So in a stunning reversal, marking the first time in the United States that a regulated cannabis workplace exited the organized labor agreement, in a massive blow to the movement of years of positive momentum when it comes to unionization. According to a report by MJBiz's Chris Roberts, Cresco Labs cultivation workers in Fall River, Massachusetts, voted to de-unionize earlier this month in an exit driven by employee dissatisfaction with union dues. Roberts reported that gardeners, supervisors, and other agricultural workers at Cresco's Fall River cultivation operation joined the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 328, UFCW 328, in November 2020, and their first contract was set to expire this June. But rather than negotiate a new deal, workers elected to ditch the UFCW entirely. Cresco employee Wyatt Brissett told MJBiz Daily. Brissett said that the sore points among the formerly unionized workers included scheduled wage increases that did not keep up with inflation and arguably worse benefits. Hear that, Jason? Worse benefits than what non-union workers were receiving. And none of the benefits seemed to justify the $40 monthly union dues that they all were paying. He said, "We felt as if the union did not match what we needed. We were pretty much paying them for nothing." It was Brissett who initiated the deunionization, a process called decertification, according to Massachusetts Division of Labor Relation Records. And the Cresco employee's decision to leave calls into question a broader conversation about union efficacy in both established and emerging industries in America. As UFCW's national influence expands, Cresco, Massachusetts' departure could spark a seismic shift in organized labor strategies for cannabis going forward. As the Dales report's Bill McNarland put it, unions might need to adopt more flexibility to the unique challenges and expectations of workers in non-traditional fields like cannabis cultivation. The situation sheds light on the complexities of union dynamics in a newer, rapidly changing market. And as for Cresco Labs, the change could also prompt updates in HR policies and employee engagement strategies to more effectively and directly address worker concerns without employee mediation. McNarland said that Cresco case underscores the need for unions to stay relevant and responsive to their members, and failures to do so may prompt a reevaluation of their role in contemporary labor markets. The observers will be watching to see how Cresco Labs' handling of the union exit impacts employee dissatisfaction and company policies, potentially setting a precedent for the cannabis industry as well as other sectors. Fall River, Massachusetts is less than a 2-hour drive away from Holyoke, the town where Lorna McMurray died from respiratory complications at a True Leaf factory where she worked. I wonder, I would have thought, in a pro-union state like Massachusetts, after a True Leaf incident went down last year, that the rise of union power would be imminent. It'd be kind of a no-brainer there, at least for large operators and MSOs of a certain magnitude. But I don't know. Maybe it's just UFCW's own miscues and incompetence here in this situation that did them under. But add this to the fake union issue that we're dealing with here in California, and I'm sure anti-union advocates like Jason and the likes have plenty of material to draw from to bolster their case against organized labor in cannabis. Either way, it'll definitely be interesting to watch how things play out for cannabis unions going forward. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. Go ahead and say it, Jason. Go ahead and say something.
That's right. I'm so glad that these people woke up in Massachusetts and told the unions to go kick rocks. Shout out to these guys, man. Good job for them. Bravo. Because all they were doing was being fleeced by these unions.
I think this is actually, even though I'm generally pro-union, I think this is a good thing on multiple counts. I'm going to put maybe a different spin on this. For one, there's already conversation about how Cresco's policies are going to change as a result of having their staff unionized for a period of time. And this is what we've always said. Unions aren't perfect, But what they do is that if you don't want your employees to unionize, then provide them with benefits and salary such that they don't feel the need for collective bargaining, right? So that's really what we want the outcome to be. We want employees of cannabis companies to be treated fairly and paid appropriately, whether that comes through a union or not. And if this is pushing Cresco to improve their conditions for their workers, then I think it was overall a win. And on the other side, it forces unions to continue to stay relevant. They need to actually provide value to the people that they're representing. At $40 a month is not a lot of money. So if you're not even providing enough value for people to want to pay $40 a month to be a member of the union, then I'd say like that's a pretty big problem. And I think that speaks more to probably the amount of support that the UFCW provided to those workers in Massachusetts.
They get $480 back.
Yeah, if you can't even beat that in terms of the collective bargaining power that you're offering, then yeah, maybe. And Cresco is probably going to provide them with more than that $500 in benefits or improvements or whatever they want. So, I mean, at the end of the day, all of this is about the workers. It's not about whether pro-union, anti-union. Like, we want workers to be treated fairly. And if the result of it is that they're decertifying that chapter of the union and getting better benefits from Cresco, and I think it's a win.
You know what I bet it is, Rico? I bet you he's probably giving all the employees like some stock options on Skittles now.
Oh my God.
That's what's happening.
This industry does not have enough high resource and high value businesses to really be able to deal straight up with unions, and unions have to be able to bring something to the table that employees can't get themselves already, or they're just not going to be able to stay in the business. If a union rolls in and they strong arm and they take away the profitability of a business if the businesses fail, that's a black eye for the union, just like this one is. It looks like they came in and sold this group of workers a bill of goods, and when it turned out that when you ain't getting us what you promised, get out of here. And this industry is not going to be able to be totally unionized until all of these barriers to profitability go away, because unions are just one more barrier to profitability in the eyes of the people who run these corporations. And I deal with them all the time. All corporations or small businesses just cannot deal with the profit loss they see from allowing unionization. So they'll do what they can to match what unions are getting their employees. But they're struggling to make a buck right now. And it isn't like you have scads of labor complaints like they used to when unions needed to be there because people were dying daily in these manufacturing plants. It's not happening in cannabis so much. You can find that, like that woman with asthma, you can find a few. But most states have OSHA laws that protect workers fairly well. Mm-hmm. But you can't bring to the table and then honor that when you work with unions, then this is never going to work. You're selling people a bill of goods is what it turns out.
Imagine it's harder to deliver too when you're dealing with workers that are in different states that all have different regulatory frameworks, different industry landscapes. It's not a plug and play model where you can say, oh, well, this was a great strategy for unionizing in California. We're going to take this to Illinois. We're going to take it to Massachusetts. Like it's not going to work out the same.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no big manufacturing plants like the UAW or things like that, or steel. There's no big plants. This is broken up all over the place. No one's gotten that kind of size yet. And I basically promote unionization of large organizations.
You need like one cannabis company to own like all of Adelanto in order to have something like that.
Well, I don't know, but I can see California being a production state and having large manufacturers out here. They're shipping all over the place once you get past this nonsense of rescheduling and it's descheduled. But at this point, we just don't have those large manufacturing and production areas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's more of a promotion for local unions rather than one with a national footprint. It just seems like, if their wage increases, like that wasn't being met, and obviously the Cresco workers not with the union were making more and they had better benefits and everything. It sounds like they just weren't really given enough attention from the union heads to make any strides that they wanted here. So I'm not going to write unions off like across the board, especially out there, maybe in cannabis, because it's brand new industry, because of the nuances as highlighted by Sohum just a second ago. Like, you need local unions and you need local representation that know the ins and outs to actually do something that'll work. But UFCW ain't working. Not in Massachusetts.
Better get it together before you go somewhere else.
Not a lot of other places either, UFCW, but nonetheless, that's for a whole nother story and a whole nother time.
Let's do it.
You ready, Rico?
Hey,
I just got my
I was
story.
late today.
Yes.
I was late today, and I conceded. See, that's the difference between me and Jason Beck, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
What?
I say, like, I don't backpedal on shit. I admit when I have come up short on any of these arguments, unlike Jason. And he'll be like, "Oh, well, it didn't happen because I didn't see it happen." Like, nah, man, this is a win.
You're crazy.
There's a win in the Jason Beck.
That's right.
I came
It's
in
a
late.
big win.
We got Sohum coming up next.
No, just me.
Sohum?
You just got me, bro.
Just you?
Just me, bro.
Let me
Just
give
me.
Jason. Give
I've
Jason
already gone through
biggest
everybody
introduction.
today, bro. Everyone today for you, Rico. You get to.
I thought that was his intro, Rico.
All right, hold on. Let me give him the intro that he deserves.
There
So
we
coming
go.
to the
There we
stage
go.
next, we have the High at 9 News head honcho, known for smoking the best weed in the world, the highest Republican in every room. Coming to the stage is none other than Jason Union Busting Beck.
Oh yeah! Look at that! Look at that! Cute, Rico. Very cute. Very cute. Very cute. Oh man, you guys, let me tell you, man, what else we're gonna start busting up today, because man, oh man, when you guys hear about this. Now, first of all, this story is like super vague, and so I'm just gonna give you that warning first of all. But some cannabis rolling papers may contain unhealthy levels of heavy metals, you guys. A team of chemists at Lake Superior State University, working with colleagues from from Wayne State University, both in Michigan, and two representatives from Jello US Lab, it basically looks like Jealous, a lab equipment maker, has found that some cannabis rolling papers contain high levels of heavy metals, which could be hazardous to smokers. In their paper published in the journals ACS Omega, the group describes their analysis of many samples of several different types of cannabis rolling papers. People who smoke marijuana use three main methods to burn product. They use a bong, a pipe, or they roll it in paper and smoke it as a joint. I find it interesting they left out people that smoke blunts, but nonetheless. Prior research has shown that some marijuana has some amount of heavy metals in it, which could prove to be a health hazard for smokers, particularly for those who smoke often. Because of this, many states have enacted laws regulating such levels. In this new study, the researchers noted that very little research has been done regarding burnable cones or the paper that it is used to make joints to see if they are safe to use in this way. The team conducted tests in their lab to measure the amounts of heavy metals they contain, and the working group involved purchasing 53 commercially available samples of papers and cones and taking them back to their lab for testing. They noted that many of the papers they purchased had been colored to make the paper appear more pleasing than the standard white, and the researchers looked for the presence of 26 elements in the papers that could pose a health hazard, most of which were heavy metals. Standard chemistry tests measured the levels of such elements, which included burning samples to see if the heavy metals were present in the smoke that would enter the lungs of a user. The researchers found mixed results, and heavy metals levels were very low in some samples and very high in others, some of which they suggested could present a health hazard for heavy users. High levels of copper were found in many of the colored papers, likely due to the pigments used, and the team concludes by noting that it would not be very difficult for makers of such products to remove heavy metals during the production process. They suggest state lawmakers take note of their findings and enact laws to force the makers of such products to reduce heavy metals to safe levels, they say. Well, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. And, oh, man, I already know Rico's going to just start talking about the white papers versus the colored papers and have something to go on with.
I got one thought on that.
There we go.
First of all, I don't think you're allowed to sell cannabis rolling papers in this country. That's federally prohibited paraphernalia. So somebody needs to tell the researchers that what they were testing is actually cigarette rolling papers.
Yes,
I think that's a good point. That is a fair point there, Sohum. But nonetheless, we all know what they're using it for. But I don't think that the cones, when people sell cones, that those are intended for tobacco use.
Sure.
Why not?
Well, I'm just picturing some boxes, and I don't believe that I've seen any warning label that says that this product is intended for tobacco use on it.
Maybe it's implied at this point. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
let me go grab a pack. Let me see.
Oh boy,
I got a lifetime supply from Josh, like pre-COVID.
Oh shit! Here we go. I can't wait to hear what this says. Dale, what do you think about this, Dale?
Well, we put a lot of attention into making sure the plant product doesn't have solvents and heavy metals in. And the rest of it, we just sort of, lollygagged around here, not worried about it. At what point they're going to worry about heavy metals, forever chemicals, microplastics and all this stuff? At some point, they'll wake up and, at least question it, maybe test it. Let people know what's in the pre-roll paper that they're going to be consuming.
What do you see on there, Rico?
Nothing about cannabis at all. It just says raw, authentic, certified, slow burning classic papers. It doesn't say tobacco papers. It says unbleached classic papers.
Interesting.
I mean, it's in the store, but they tell you that it's tobacco.
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that, bro. I go into these kind of stores all the time. They never talk about none of that. Back in the day, you couldn't go, used to call bongs water pipes and stuff like that. But
water pipe.
That type of discipline has 100% left these smoke shops. These guys are in there selling all kinds of stuff. They're selling all kinds of like crazy drugs.
I used to kick you out of a smoke shop back in the day if you asked them for a bong.
Exactly.
They have a big sign that says we don't sell bongs here.
Nowadays
above a giant bongs.
Exactly. Nowadays then they're going in there, they're selling Delta 8, HHC, magic mushrooms, and anything else they can possibly find that they don't think that they're going to get regulated on.
Yeah, you just got to put that. You just got to put a sticker on there that says for tobacco use only.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I wonder if this will have any impact on testing rules for pre-rolls. Are they going to start requiring people to test the pre-roll with the paper on it?
I think that is basically is what the people of the study are saying. They're saying like, hey, the state we're encouraging the states to enact laws that mandate certain things of these paper companies. To try to remediate this. I wish that they would have named who had high tests.
I was going to say the same thing. Like, how useful is this information?
I know
that not trying to destroy a brand, but like, it's a public health issue at this point. Like, you're going to tell us that a bunch of shit we're smoking has heavy metals in it, but not tell us which ones?
Maybe there's an NDA involved, huh?
I feel you.
Who knows?
And copper is a metal, right? Copper is a metal, right? So I'm willing to bet all the colored papers were the ones that were higher in heavy metals.
I thought copper was good for you.
Copper's good for you, like if you wear it in your socks.
You put it on a bracelet.
Yeah, it helps with like your circulation.
The lungs don't deal with it too well, though.
Yeah. Lungs.
Well, what if you have an iron deficiency with like smoking heavy metals? Like, that'd be good for you.
I think that's better.
No.
I think it's better as a suppository.
With an iron
Rico.
deficiency, getting hit in the head with an iron pipe ain't going to fix it either.
Oh boy, man.
It might for some people. You never know.
I knocked some sense into the idiots, right?
This is a great conversation for the anniversary of Jason's favorite guy going on national TV and telling people to inject bleach into their veins.
Oh
God.
4 years ago today.
System. Good way to clean out your system.
I'm just glad to know that you have so many Trump days noted in your calendar.
Oh no, I'm just on Twitter.
I'm just so glad that you have all these dates in your calendar, Sohum, because that's how I remember.
I have a
them.
special calendar just to remind Jason about fun Trump days.
I have a whole book of Trumpisms. I should come and read them to you someday on the show, bro. You would love them.
Oh my God.
I actually have John Oliver's Trump Twitter library that he released a few years ago.
Oh man,
a nice coffee table book.
That would probably be pretty good too.
I suspect Donald's real uncomfortable sitting there every day in trial in front of a jury.
I don't think so.
That's
I think
what he wants to be doing.
I think he's soaking it up. He's playing the role.
I think he's shitting himself.
I don't think so. Well,
he's definitely farting in the courtroom, apparently, as reported by multiple news agencies.
Of course, they would report that.
A few days ago, I think it was MSNBC. Somebody
of course,
it
was MSNBC.
Allegedly, he was ripping ass in the courtroom to the point where his own attorneys were becoming very uncomfortable by it.
Man.
Yeah, I've tried a lot of cases. I never heard anybody in there farting while someone was making an argument in front of the jury.
And it's your own lawyers. At least do it while the other attorneys up there talking.
I just want to see. I just like to see the judge be like, "What'd that asshole say?"
Dude,
must violate the gag order, right?
I loved every second of it.
Oh boy, let's roll, bro. Let's roll. I'm surprised they're not going to try to put those in a bottle and sell them. People would pay for that.
Anyways, thank you all for joining us.
Jason would pay for that.
No, I would not.
Thank you all for joining us for another episode of High at 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to the Superfans showing love, getting their comments posted live on the big screen. Our live audience and online supporters catching us across all media platforms, tuning in each day to the headlines of chaos, also known as the developing cannabis industry. Our vetted correspondent team tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respected opinions to the table. Our production team, Cloud Media Partners, our sponsors keeping the lights on, our AV struggles to a minimum, and always Cannabis Sativa L, the reason why we show up to read these stories every single day. Thank you as well. It has been Wednesday, Hump Day, April 24th, 4/24. Was it 4/24?
Yeah, 4/24. Yeah.
This is like all
palindrome day.
Yeah.
Every
all
day
week
this month.
All week.
All right. So either way, the show's over. You've all been blessed with the top industry headlines. It was enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until tomorrow. Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News, cannabis industry's #1 daily news show. And give it to Uncle Dale, Loco.
Picture this, a cat in a laser light, okay? Back in the late 1800s, really smart doctors tried to figure out why people did the things they did, and it turned into our modern marketing system. The next time you think that, something just sounds so good, I can't even imagine how good it feels, think of yourself as the cat. And who's flashing that laser light in front of you, trying to get you to buy shit you don't need, spending money you ain't got? Oh, take it out on that, guys. Cat in the laser light.
Love it.